welcome to Navigating Betrayal Live webinar, podcast, and YouTube channel. I'm your host, KayLee Dunn, betrayal navigation coach, betrayal trauma therapist for over a decade, and admin of our free group, Humans Navigating Betrayal. If you're watching this later on the YouTube channel or on the podcast, please join us in the Facebook group if you'd like to. Stick around to the end for a short Q&A. Also, don't forget that the free live Love You Now conference for betrayal survivors will be taking place September 19th and 20th and the 22nd and 23rd of this month. So coming up, and check in the show notes or here in the Facebook group for the link to that. Kendra will be speaking. And I'm so excited to spend some time chatting with her today. Kendra Last is a good friend and colleague, retreat host extraordinaire, buddy of mine, and moderator or other admin, I guess, of this Humans Navigating Betrayal group. So we are going to be talking about unlocking the power of your mind, healing thoughts for the future you want. Honestly, I wanted Kendra to talk about 10 things at the Love You Now conference. And there's just not time for that. So I'm like, I'm going to pull Kendra into the podcast, into the group, so we can talk about some other topics that she won't be covering in as much detail in the conference. So definitely come to the conference. You can hear from her. She's going to be talking about narcissism and covert narcissism and healing afterwards and so many cool things. So, but before we jump into our topic, Kendra, will you please introduce us, tell us what you do, your background, as much as you want to share, and then we'll jump into the topic at hand.
I would love to. Thank you for having me today, KayLee. It's always great to see you. It's always great to talk to the group. You all are my people. I feel so at home here. So thank you for having me. So I'm a certified life coach. I can coach on any topic, but I have chosen to focus my practice on betrayal, trauma, and narcissistic abuse. Sometimes they go together. Sometimes you're experiencing one or the other. But really, I help you heal and understand your mind and understand how to take your power back after experiencing situations where really it takes away your power. If you've been betrayed, you feel like your power has left you. If you have been with a narcissist, for sure, after that experience, you feel powerless. So I help give you your power back. And I mean, KayLee and I did this retreat together called the Empower You Retreat. And that's the whole purpose, is just to give you back your power. So today I'm going to give you a little bit of your power back, help you unlock your brain, show you a little bit about how coaching helps you do that. It's slightly different than therapy, but I have been in the betrayal trauma world. In your shoes, I was betrayed in a 9-year marriage, and then I was married to a narcissist, my second husband. And since that divorce, I've become a certified coach, but I've been working in the betrayal field for a long time. And I'm a journaling expert as well, so I can also help you really learn how to take your own thoughts that are all kind of stuck inside your brain. We're going to be talking about thoughts a lot today, but how to take them out, write them on paper, and how to use that as a way to heal as well. And we'll make sure that linked below is some of a link to my free resources. That's a free journaling guide to get you started on journaling as well.
And that resource is amazing. I show it and share it with clients all the time. So definitely take advantage of that. And we'll also put links to Kendra's coaching page if you have interest in working with her one-on-one coaching, as well as the retreat that we'll be talking about all year, but we are doing another retreat this summer. So if that's your jam, staying up till midnight, giggling our heads off, well, we try to go to bed at a reasonable hour, but just having so much fun and learning and healing together, let us know, because it's going to be an absolute blast. Okay. So let's make sure we jump into the topic so we have time to cover everything we want to. So recently you made a post on Facebook that really intrigued me. I loved how it was worded. I thought that was so bold. And I love Kendra. She always speaks in very bold terms that sometimes can ruffle feathers. And I think that's such a good thing to do at times. So she said, most people believe that the circumstance needs to change in order to change your feelings or results. Wrong. We do not need to control or change others' actions in order to feel differently and create different results for ourselves. So I'd love if you could start us out by talking about these concepts. And you can start wherever you want with that, but I think that can definitely ruffle feathers, but it's so key. While it's also hard to hear. So share that with us, please.
Yeah, especially when we're like talking in the realm of betrayal, right? Like we all feel like, or we have these thoughts that like my partner has to change. He has to stop looking at porn. He has to stop talking to this other woman. He has to stop Snapchatting with whoever. Like he has to stop doing that in order for me to heal, or in order for me to feel better, or all of those things. And I hear you and I totally get it. And I have been in those shoes. I know what it feels like to be having those thoughts and how powerful those thoughts are. I'm going to hopefully give you a little bit of a key to unlock and take away some of the power of those thoughts. I am not suggesting that you need to just let them do whatever and have zero boundaries in your life. I'm in fact suggesting the opposite of that. And we'll be talking about how boundaries kind of come and circle back into this. But some of the power, I'm going to say something that's going to make you want to turn this off. Just hold your breath and stick here for a second. Other adult humans get to do whatever they want to do. They do. I get to do whatever I want to do. KayLee gets to do whatever she wants to do. Our partners can do whatever they want to do. Other adult humans get to do whatever they want to do. However, we get to choose how we respond to that. We get to choose what boundaries we set up in our lives so that others know how they can act around us. So yes, other adult humans can do whatever they want to. It doesn't mean they get to stay in a relationship with us if they continue to do those things. Right. But it does mean that they have the power to make a choice to do that thing. And we have a power to make a choice to do whatever we're going to do after that thing. So a boundary is, if you, other human, do this thing, then I will do this other thing that I've already decided on. And often we think a boundary is just, you can't watch porn anymore. And we think that's the boundary. And we're like, no, I told my partner he can't watch porn anymore. Like, I've set my boundary. I'm like, you've made a request, and requests are great. But a boundary really would be, if you look at porn, then I will, whatever the next step is, then I will distance myself. Then I will ask you to sleep in another room. Then I will ask you to move out of the house. Whatever the next step is for you, because we will never be able to control that other person. And so it's having thoughts about our worthiness to expect those things and to have those boundaries held up, and to believe that I have made this choice from a place where I am totally confident. I know for sure I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody looking at porn. So if I find out that they are, then this is the next step I'm going to take. Because
I love that. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, go for it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love what you're saying, that ultimately the way that we think, because we're talking about unlocking the mind and using healing thoughts to move ourselves forward into the future, and how powerful that those thoughts are, the words that we say in our mind, and how they direct us and how they influence us, and that we actually do get to choose. Maybe not always the first thought that pops in, but certainly the second. We get to choose what we're going to think and believe, and then we can choose what we do. Would you mind giving us some examples? I know you're kind of giving a couple, but could you give us some examples of what changing that thought? Maybe the first thought is one thing, and that's normal and natural and understandable. But when we make that choice to shift that thought, what that can do in terms of creating more safety and self-care and healing.
Yes. And I'm going to explain one more thing really quick before we do that. Yeah. Just so that we can kind of understand really what our thoughts do, and kind of more what I was talking about when I was saying we don't have to change the circumstance. Oh, so perfect. This is kind of how things in our lives and in our brain are connected to each other. Okay, there's circumstances in our lives. Those are just factual events. It's either a collection of numbers, like the weather outside, it's just a factual number. Words someone said, in quotes, that's just a factual something that happened. Then we have a thought about it. And so often, I mean, I was taught as a kid, like, don't do that or don't say that, you're going to hurt their feelings. As if
Right.
what I did or said, that factual circumstance, was going to create somebody's feelings, but really there's a thought in between them. So there's a circumstance, and that just triggers our brain to think a sentence in our inside, a thought. And then the thoughts create our feelings, and our feelings drive our actions. And then the combinations of our thoughts, feelings, and actions create the results in our lives. And so if we want to change the result in our life, we don't have to change a circumstance. We
Right.
pick a new thought. And so we have control of everything down here. Thoughts, like we get thoughts, like our brains, by the time we're adults, our brains are really fast at giving us quick fire thoughts. And especially when they seem true, we're like, oh yeah, that's the only thought available. Like, they have cheated, they are scum, they are, like, we think that's a true thought. Especially when we're thinking about like they didn't tell me this, they're so disrespectful. Right? And so like our thought might be that they did or didn't do something, and so we feel disrespected. But maybe another person in that same situation wouldn't feel disrespected because they're choosing a different thought, even though the circumstance is the same. And so it's really learning that this piece right here is so powerful in creating the results, and that we do get to choose other optional thoughts. We can have that first thought, which I'm going to kind of go over some examples. We can have that first thought that comes into our mind and acknowledge it for a second, but we could pick a different one. Or even after the fact, like something we do in coaching is we might look at a situation that's already happened. It didn't go great, either a fight that blew up or just something that's not working in your relationship. We'll look at it and we'll kind of like really separate it out. And then way after the fact, we're choosing a new thought. But it's a way to train your brain that in the future you can choose new thoughts. So as I'm going through these examples of being able to change from one thought to the other, don't feel like, oh, well, now I can't do it right if I can't do it automatically right away. That's not the way that our brain is naturally going to work, because the way it naturally works is the way that it gives you the first thought that you've been thinking. But coaching can really help you get to a place where you could choose new thoughts, or just doing a lot of work on your own to really pause and examine the thoughts that are just in your brain. So, okay, so here's a couple examples. These are real examples from my clients of where they've been able to take an old thought that was not useful, change it to create a new result in their life without having to change the circumstance. So this first example is a client, her husband has cheated on her multiple times. And her thought, after a new discovery day, after a new D-Day, her thought was, I can't believe he's choosing everything over me. So that's the thought here. Circumstances, he cheated. Believe it or not, it's neutral. The actions he took is neutral, until she had a thought about it, which was, I can't believe he's choosing everything for me. And then the feeling and action she took were creating the result of she's not living in her reality. That thought, I can't believe he's doing this. It's like, you just told me he's doing this. So if you just believe it. So then what we took from that talked about, okay, now I'm going to believe it. And then her new thought was, he's not capable of choosing me. And the empowerment that thought made her feel, like after examining all these years of betrayal, the new thought of, he's just not capable of doing this. She felt empowered then to make choices for herself for what she was going to do next. And instead of not living in reality, her new result was she's living in her reality and making decisions. So just that thought changed everything else. We can't change the circumstance. We can't change what he's done. Okay, another example. So this is a client who's in the middle of a divorce, and they were concerned because their kids are teenagers and there's no parenting plan. And the judge is not going to require a parenting plan. And they're like, what are we going to do? So many of you right now are probably thinking, that's not neutral. Like, that's a problem.
Right.
There must be a parenting plan, right? But the fact that there's no parenting plan is just a circumstance. It's neutral, actually. And then the thought you have about it. So their first thought was the girls are going to struggle without a routine. And the way that it made them feel and the actions that they took, which we put all those things out. I'm not going to go through all of those for sake of time here, but created the results that they were struggling without a routine. So my client was the one struggling because they had this thought, my kids are going to struggle. The kids hadn't struggled yet. The kids were honestly pretty unaware of the fact that there's any struggle going on, but they were struggling. And so then the new thought was, I can create a routine without a parenting plan. It's like, I don't need my partner to get, or my ex-partner to get on board with a parenting plan. I can just make my own routine anyway. This is what happens when they're at my house. I'm making this routine. And that new thought was very empowering. And going from struggling without the routine themselves to taking control back of their life was the new result that they created for themselves. Just from that little thought shift, right? Okay, I've got two more quick examples.
Yes, please. I think this is really helpful, and you're giving different life circumstances, because some people in our, as you know, in our group are trying to make the relationship work and feeling pretty powerless and disempowered. And there are people who are divorcing and feeling powerless. And there are people who have exited the relationship and they're still co-parenting powerless moments. And so, as you and I are so jazzed about empowerment, I think this is really great to give these different examples. So please keep going.
Yeah. And what I'd love you guys to be doing as we're kind of going through these and as you're listening, put in the chat box, which KayLee is monitoring, not me, but at the end, when we go to Q&A, I would also love, you could put your thought in there that you're like, no way is this thing neutral, or the thought I'm having about it could be changed or whatever. I would love for you to kind of challenge me on this. Just put any quick circumstance and thought, just these two things, like a super fast circumstance of like, yeah, I'm dealing with a porn addiction with my partner, or he cheated, or she, whatever. And then the thought that you're having about it. And then I'd love to give you just a possibility of a new thought, because sometimes just hearing, like the old thought, we believe to be truth. Like, we think it's the one truth that could be true about that circumstance. We've thought it so many times, we believe it to be like a gospel truth. And sometimes when you just hear presented the possibility of a new thought, it can really unlock some things in your brain. So if there is something that feels really stuck to you, or this thought or belief about what your partner's doing is feeling stuck for you, I'd love to see if we can poke some holes in that and help you just wiggle that loose a little bit, just so that you can see that there maybe is a possibility of another thought. So you can be putting that in the chat while we're going to, and I'd love to answer that as part of the Q&A. Okay, so this next thought is from another client who their partner cheated, and their thought was, I want someone to pick me. And just really feeling, and this is before she's decided if she's going to stay in the relationship or not. He's not showing a lot of improvements of wanting to make the relationship work or wanting to change. Her boundaries are, you can't look at porn, you can't talk to other women. Otherwise, she's going to leave the relationship. She's not quite ready to leave yet. And so these old thoughts of, I just want someone to pick me, is keeping her stuck. And the result it was creating for her is that she's closed up, she's not choosing herself, and she's not available to be chosen. And it's really fascinating. I should put together a case study, but when you have the thoughts, I don't want, so kind of like the last example I gave, the girls are going to struggle without the routine. Even when we assign it to somebody else, the girls are going to struggle. Almost always we create the result of us struggling. So she's saying, I want someone else to choose me. And the result she's creating is she doesn't choose herself. And it's so powerful. And so then when we go to switch a thought, and her new thought that she came up with is, I choose me. And the result that gave to her is that she's owning her own power. Again, so empowering, right? It's like, I'm going to choose me. Okay, well, what actions am I going to take when I feel empowered because I'm choosing me? What actions am I going to do? Well, I'm not going to put up with him coming in late and all these things. Like, I'm going to go to bed at the time that I say I'm going to go to bed. I'm not going to answer texts from him. I am only going to communicate in these ways in which I've already told him, that she holds her boundaries, right? And so it's so powerful that these new empowering thoughts, I didn't plan to do that where like the feeling for all of them would be empowered. I didn't plan that, but let me tell you that when you get coaching from betrayal, I can guarantee that I get you to a place of empowerment, because that you go from unempowered so much, giving away your power, that the only result to go to is to find your power. So like, if you were feeling disempowered and you were like, there's no hope, I have no power in this world, come talk to me. We could definitely get you to empowerment.